What is up, everybody? Chris the DGen, also known as Dice DGen on YouTube. Welcome back to Daily Fantasy Domination, Episode 3 here on Casino Gaming TV. Hopefully you guys are in the Discord already, chatting in the Daily Fantasy Domination channel on Discord. All right, hopefully you guys have DM'd me some questions by now. I know I've gotten a few, but if you guys have questions, Dice DGen on the Casino Gaming TV Discord, shoot me your questions. All right, and today this is episode 3, which means 1 week until the live shows start next Wednesday, October 19th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bookmark that day. All right, tell your significant other you're not available at that time. Okay, tell them, or maybe get them interested in daily fantasy, right? Get them interested, have them watch it with you, so then you have an excuse. You're like, oh, it's time for daily fantasy. Yeah, smart move. That's what I did, right? Get them interested, and then it doesn't seem like you're ignoring them, right? Pro tip from the DGen, I will give you all the advice you need, fantasy related and possibly dating and marriage related as well. Anyway, enough of the jokes. Let's get into some serious topics, eh? Why don't we? I'm not Canadian. I don't know why I said eh, but let's get into it, all right? So, episode 1, we went over what daily fantasy is. Episode 2, we went over the different types of competitions you can enter. And today, we're going to focus solely on picking players, creating that optimal lineup, and then hopefully dominating your daily fantasy. So, picking players. What do you need to know? Well, there's a salary. I've said it in the past 2 episodes. I'm going to say it again. DraftKings, $50,000. FanDuel, there is a $60,000 salary cap you have to stay under to pick your team. So keep that in mind. I tell you guys to look at the scoring system and the payout structure. Look at the scoring system. There's bonuses involved in some of these competitions. So make sure we're looking at those bonuses, because some of them, right, if you have 100 yards rushing for a running back, there's extra points involved. So you might want to pick a guy who's going to be a rushing running back, getting 100 yards on the ground, whereas instead of a running back who picks or who catches balls out of the backfield, right? Because if they get 50 yards on the ground and 50 yards receiving, well, yes, those targets might be helpful to your points, but you're not going to get that bonus for the rushing. All right, so make sure we're looking at the scoring system and seeing if there are any bonuses. The next thing we need to know is the time of the games and what competition you are entering into, okay? Some of them are Thursday night only. Some of them span Thursday to Monday. Some of them are Sunday only. Some of them are Sunday afternoon only. Afternoon for me, I'm on the East Coast, so games are at 1 p.m. They start for me. If you're on the West Coast, they would be 9 a.m., 10 a.m., math. 10 a.m. start time. All right, so make sure you guys are looking at when the times of the games are and the competition you are entering. We're also going to talk about some favorable matchups, right? Let's see who's playing against a favorable defense. My model incorporates that, so I'm going to go over that in a little bit. Key injuries. Did a wide receiver 1 go down? Who's the wide receiver 2? Are they going to step up into that wide receiver 1 role? It's possible, right? So we're going to look at the injuries. That's why the show will be on Wednesday. Most of the injury reports should be out by then, and I will bring them to you on this show. So again, guys, make sure you are subscribed and you have that bell tapped, and you know when Daily Fantasy Domination will be on, so we can go over all of the important information. All right, it'll be like a newscast of sorts for all of your fantasy needs, so you guys don't have to do it. You guys can sit back, relax, and just enjoy the time with the DGen. I will give you the news, all right, and you guys can do what you want with the information. There will be some extras today that I'm going to go over as well on how to pick players and some things that I use, and then we'll talk about my model. I'm not going to go super in-depth into actually showing my model. I will show it next week, all right, on the first live stream. I will go over what my model looks like, how it works. I will not go into coding it right now. If you guys want to see an episode on how I coded the model, you guys can let me know down below in the comments, all right, or let me know in Discord. Maybe I will put something together for how I coded it. But I do want to say one thing. It's coming up later, all right? The model at the basic level has certain aspects, and then I have other key points and other key factors that I have built into the model that I specifically focus on, all right? So I want to say that these are specific stats and key factors that I like to look at. So that's why my picks may be a little bit different than some other picks you see, right? The model spits out one thing originally, and then I add some of these overlays into it, and it adjusts accordingly. So I'm going to give you the straight model picks, and then I will also give you some of my overlay picks as to why I like them, all right? Again, guys, with everything that I do on here, I'm not just going to tell you, pick this player. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you the background behind why I like this player. Why does the model like it? All right, I know why the model's going to like it because I have it built in a certain way. So if it tells me that someone's a good value based on the model, well, then I can draw from a couple conclusions as to why it's a good value. All right, so we're going to get heavy into that during the live shows. But for right now, just know that the picks are model and specific overlay generated. And then there's also an eye test that I have. I watch all the games, all right? People think I'm nuts. I have like TV up, computer up, other computer up, other TV up, phone is going. There's a lot of things going on, all right? So I have a lot of watching that I do on Sundays, all right? So the salary, right? We went over this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You got to fill your entire roster. You can't exceed the salary, and you can't exceed the budget that you have. $50,000 on DraftKings, $60,000 on FanDuel. All right, scoring. This is another thing that I say I want you to look at the scoring because some leagues are PPR, which is point per reception. Some of them are half-point PPR, or half point per reception. Some of them are standard, no points per reception. All right, so you got to focus in on this stuff. Now, my model is based on PPR because that's mainly what I play is the PPR contest. So make sure you're looking at the scoring to make sure that it is PPR or half-point PPR or standard because your picks will change based on what the scoring is. Same thing with a season-long fantasy, right? We know there's running backs who catch the ball a lot out of the backfield. In a PPR league, we love them. In a standard league, not so much. We still like them, but not as much as in a PPR league because you get that extra point per catch, right? Your running back could have a okay rushing day and have, let's say 20 yards receiving, but 10 catches for 20 yards. Those little bubble screens, all those kind of things, right? In a PPR league, you love them. Even if they get no yardage, just look at the point because they caught the ball, all right? So make sure you were looking at what type of scoring we have. Captains, all right? Some of the competitions feature captains. They score 1.5 times the points. So it's very, very hard to beat somebody when they pick the perfect player for the captain position, all right? Because they're scoring 1.5 times what they would normally score. So, again, look at the scoring, look at the formatting, all right? The bonuses, I mentioned it before. Some of the competitions have bonuses for certain things, all right? So make sure you're looking at the bonuses to fully understand what the scoring structure is. And then use the scoring to your advantage, all right? If it's a PPR league, we're picking running backs and wide receivers who have high target share, all right? I don't care how many yards, I do care how many yards they get, but I'm looking a lot at target share, okay? In a standard league, I'm not looking as much at target share. I'm looking at the yards. Target share factors into that, but I'm not focused on did they get 10 targets this week and get 50 yards. I'm focusing on they got the 50 yards. So that's something that I also want to bring to your attention. All right, so the times of games, I went over this in my last one, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more. All right, is it a single game? Is it the 1 p.m. games only? The 1 and 4 p.m. games? All the games? Choose accordingly. All right, know which competition you are entering into. It should be pretty clearly labeled on the competition you are entering. Matchups and injuries, they happen, right? They could totally kill your entire season-long fantasy team, right? How many times have you picked Christian McCaffrey in the first round, in the first couple picks, and he's gotten injured and done for the season? Your first round pick, your first or second overall pick, has been injured the entire season, right? It happens, all right? So this, in daily fantasy, the injuries hurt us if our player gets injured. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter to us. But what we do like to focus in on are exploiting the matchups and the injuries, okay? So in the model, I'm going to go over it. I have things for how good is the defense against a particular position. I don't care how the defense is overall. Kind of. I do care how they are overall. But some defenses are very, very good against the run, but they're terrible against the pass. Okay, so we're looking at how they are against a specific position and how they are overall. But when we're making our picks, we're looking at the positional defensive stats. Okay, we're also going to look at, is a key player missing, right? Is their starting cornerback out for the game? Is one of their linebackers done? Is one of their best edge rushers out of the game? You don't know. Or on the flip side, right? Let's say one of your wide receivers is out of the game. Not yours specifically, but one team's wide receiver is out of the game. Okay? Who's filling in that wide receiver one spot? Can we exploit them at a lower value? Because let's say, for example, I don't want to wish bad on anybody, so I'm actually not going to give that example. Let's say, we have a team. Wide receiver 1, 2, 3. Wide receiver 1 goes down, tore his Achilles, done for the season. Okay? Well, who are we looking at to step up into that wide receiver 1 spot? Is it the wide receiver 2, the wide receiver 3? Well, wide receiver 1 might be valued at, let's say, $8,000 on these apps. Wide receiver 2 and 3 are in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. Now, if wide receiver 1 goes down, they will jump up a little bit. But you might get a discounted price for a wide receiver 1. All right, so that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the depth charts to know who is filling in those positions, who's coming in, who's out, things like that. Again, injury reports factor into all of that. So, extras. I said I'm going to give you guys some extras. All right, so flex position. All right, I always put, not always, but 95% of the time, I have a receiver in my flex position. Why? Well, I told you I play a lot of PPR type formatting leagues, okay? So I have a receiver in my flex because they're getting those catches. It's usually a high target receiver in my flex who might be lower valued, but they get a lot of targets, all right? If they can put up, let's say 8 targets, fantastic. 50, 60 yards, that's even better. Maybe a touchdown, fantastic. But we're looking at high targets, high target share, high amount of catches. Also the late swap. All right, so I want you guys to be focusing in on this, right? You might pick your roster on a Saturday. You might pick it on a Sunday morning, and then you get the Adam Schefter tweet, this guy's out for the game. Is he in your lineup? Maybe. Well, you definitely got to switch him out, right? You don't want the goose egg on your score sheet. But if somebody's out of the game, okay, let's say, for example, I said Christian McCaffrey already. So let's say Christian McCaffrey is out of the game. Okay. Well, his running back number 2 might be valued at $4,000 or $5,000 less than him because he doesn't come off the field very often, right? So you might be able to go scoop that running back and then build up your other positions based on that salary that you just saved by switching it out. All right. So the late swap, guys, pay attention to that. All right. I have won countless competitions switching my lineup for injury-related news, not because I just wanted to switch it. All right, whatever my gut picks are at the first, that's usually what I go with unless I have somebody who's injured, and then I start swapping things out. But the late swap, guys, pay attention to that. If you're in a 1 p.m. game, the picks don't lock until like 12:59 in, I think, like 50-something seconds. All right, right before kickoff, you can switch it. Once kickoff happens, you can't switch it anymore. All right, so pay attention to the late swap. Stacks. We're going to talk about stacks throughout the season. All right, if you're new to daily fantasy or you don't know what a stack is, it is stacking multiple players on a team. So you're picking, let's say, a quarterback and a wide receiver, hoping they both have a good game, because if they both have a good game, you're not doubling your points, but you're, in theory, doubling your points because you're getting points for the catches and for the passing yards. For the touchdowns, you're getting points for the touchdown, for the quarterback, and for the wide receiver. All right, so the stacks are popular. I will give you guys some stacks throughout the year, and we will go on that. Now, Vegas lines. Vegas lines, I look at them pretty closely for betting reasons and then also for the fantasy reasons. Why? Well, they can tell you a lot if you know how to read them. All right, so I'm going to go into that on the live shows. We're going to get into why they matter, things like that. But pay attention to Vegas lines. Pay attention to the line shifts. All right, sometimes the lines move based on injury information, based on certain aspects. Okay, so pay attention to the lines. They can tell you some things. Defensive schemes and rankings. All right, so the rankings are built into my model. I update it on a weekly basis. All right, so it's new information for the season before I actually hit the button to spit out the model. Okay, so it's all updated, but pay attention to defensive schemes, right? If you have a defensive team who loves to sit in like a zone defense, it's fantastic for wide receivers, right? The catches are there. If your guy playing in a man, it's a little tighter. So pay attention to the defensive schemes and how they play. Again, we're going to get into this in a lot more depth as the season goes on, but start thinking about them. Start researching which teams like to play which defenses. They do switch defenses often, but you can actually take a look at which defense they set up in and how much of a percentage of a time. All right, so for example, teams that blitz a lot. Well, we don't love running backs who are getting blitzed a lot. Why? Well, because one, if they hand the ball off, they might get stopped quite quickly. Also, the running backs are blocking for the quarterback, right? So if you're blitzing, your running back might be out of a lot of plays because they're blocking instead of running the ball or popping out for a screen or something like that. All right, so pay attention to defensive schemes. We're going to go over salary savers, all right? Guys who are undervalued, who could be good picks for that week. And then I'll also give you guys tools on how you can build your lineups better with my information and with some other tools that are available. There's paid ones and there's free ones. All right, so I'm going to give you guys the free ones. I don't pay for any tools. All right, I have my own that I use. I don't pay to see who somebody else is saying to pick. All right, I just built my own. All right, so let's pop into the model quickly. All right, this is going to be a high-level overview of the model. It's not going to be super in-depth. Again, I'm going to go more in-depth as we go throughout the season and why I picked players, but the model is based on the players, the matchup for the player, the salary, the projected points that are given by DraftKings or FanDuel, okay? Then I look at defensive efficiency compared to the position. I look at the defensive efficiency compared to the league average against that position. I look at the Vegas lines. They're built into the model. I look at projected points based on the criteria above. So I have my own projection that I give, or that the model gives me, based on all of the above, okay? Then based off those projected points and the salary, we get a projected value. That's what I'm looking for, the value number. All right, you'll see them in the model when I go over the model and stuff, but the projected value is what I'm really looking at because let's say, for example, right, Cooper Kupp, good example. He might score 25, 30 points a week, but he's priced at, let's say, 10K on FanDuel. Well, if he's priced at 10K, scored me 30 points, what if I had a guy who is priced at, let's say, 7,500, 7.5, who's scoring me 20 points? From a value perspective, I can save that $2,500 and build it into other players who will make up that difference, hopefully, on the 10 points. All right, so that's what I'm talking about, this projected value. Again, I will go over it more in depth with the model, but this is what my model works off of. And I mentioned the overlays that I put into the model. So the basic model is what I just talked about. Now, the model goes deeper because I have my own certain things that I'm looking for and that have been helpful to me to win competitions. All right, so the value is one thing, but then I also put in these other criteria. So for wide receivers, it's targets, their receptions, the yards per catch, the touchdowns, and the percentage of snaps they're on the field. All right, if you're not on the field, you can't score me points. I don't want you on my team if you're not scoring me points and you're not on the field. All right, same thing for wide receivers. We're looking at touches. We're looking at yards per rush. We're looking at targets if they're catching the ball out of the backfield, the amount of receptions they're getting, the yards per catch, the touchdowns, and again, the percentage of snaps. I like guys on my team who have a high percentage of snaps. For tight ends, it's the same thing as wide receivers. Targets, receptions, yards per catch, and again, percentage of snaps. With the tight ends, I also look at the percentage of blocking that they do. All right, so I look at how often are they in a blocking scheme versus how often are they in a route running scheme. Now, yes, they will be blocking most likely even if they are in a route running scheme, but are they actually grabbing a block or are they more brushing a block and then going to run their route? All right, that's what I'm looking at there. So how do I pick, right? This is what everybody wants to know. How do I make my picks? Well, the model. I look at the model. Projected points, projected value, okay? I put in my overlays, and it gives me some good criteria to go off of. Now, I don't always pick what the model gives me, okay? I also have to work in the salary. I have an optimizer built in. I don't use it very often because I don't like the picks the optimizer gives me. It hasn't worked well for me. I have to figure out how to code it a little bit better. But the model itself gives me great picks. And with the overlays, then I start tweaking with the salaries and who I can fill in. All right. So I will tell you that the model has been very, very good this year. I told you I'm hitting over 75%. It's true. I can put up screenshots of competitions I've won and stuff. All right. So projected points and projected value off my model, not the projected points that FanDuel or DraftKings give me. Projected points off my model and then the value. I'm looking up the matchups. All right, if I know a team is terrible against wide receivers, I love the wide receiver playing against them. Simple as that. Injuries. Some wide receiver 1's injured. I might snag that wide receiver 2 to fill in that spot. They're going to be lower valued. Hopefully they take over that wide receiver 1. All right, the eye test. I'm watching teams. I'm looking at what they're doing, right? I'm trying to see who's the quarterback throwing the ball to when they need to get a certain amount of yards, right? 3rd and 10, who's that quarterback going to? Who's their reliable guy? That's what I'm looking at. The model's not counting in for that, all right? It does factor it in slightly with target share and things like that. But if you have a team who passes so often, I want that guy who they throw to in crunch time. Who is that player? That's who I want on my team. All right, again, we're looking at Vegas lines, and it's basically a puzzle. Why? Well, because I'm using all of these things, fitting it together to create my final masterpiece lineup. All right, guys, so that is how I make my picks. And finally, what's next, right? Live show starts next week, October 19th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's what's next. Next week. Get that calendar reminder in there, all right? And we will go over picks. We will go over who I like, who I don't like, who has the good matchups, who has bad matchups. All right, it's important to stay away from the guys with bad matchups. I'm not talking about an elite receiver against a good defense. I'm talking about a mediocre receiver against a good defense. All right, so we're going to go over all that and much, much more next week, October 19th, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the bell, drop a like on the video. Drop in the comments down below what else you guys want to see on the show. All right. Also, Discord. Get in Discord. Get in the channels. Message me if you have questions on there. All right. I really look forward to hearing from you guys, and I hope you guys are excited for the next live show. I know I am. And let's get this started with a bang. All right. That is episode number 3 in the books for Daily Fantasy Domination. Guys, I hope you are dominating your league. I hope I can help you dominate your leagues a little bit more, dominate these contests, and let's win. Because that's what we're here to do, right? Let's win. Guys, I will see you next Wednesday, live, October 19th. Let's get it going. Have a good one, everyone.